So I absolutely loved Loki Season 2. It was just such a flawless show, and it really did bring back all of the thrills, shocks and excitement that the Disney Plus shows used to have when they were first released. And just Loki's arc from start to finish, in terms of the first time that you see him in the first Thor movie, his desperation for the throne, to impress Odin and just to be having glorious purpose in everything that he is doing, to now just completely different as a character. His growth is just tremendous, and I really do feel like he is one of those characters that you can now study in school for media classes in terms of characters that are just so rich and have just gone on such a transformational journey. Honestly, Loki's is pure class, and Tom Hiddleston just plays him in a way that you can just feel every single thing that he is expressing when he is euphoric, when he's really high. You can feel all of those when he is on the depths of being truly broken as a character. You can really feel that as well. All of Tom Hiddleston's line delivery is just done so well. So, you know, when he was saying against Sophia Martino's Sylvie character, where she was saying, look, all you're after really is a throne, isn't it? And he was like, look, the last thing I want is a throne. You could just feel all of that. And now from a Shakespearean perspective, he is doomed to spend eternity on this throne. I just honestly think it's just such a world-class example of how you brilliantly write a character. And I mean, Tom Hiddleston has said very recently, actually, on Jimmy Fallon's show that, you know, his arc is now complete. So a lot of people are worrying that we're never going to see the Loki character again. I personally think that what he was really referring to is that, you know, the Loki that you see in the beginning in that first Thor movie, his personal arc is complete, but in terms of the stories that we will see in the future with the Loki character, I mean, he is definitely going to be telling Marvel Studios that he needs to get a massive pay rise for the next time that you do see him, as he has now got a bit of a Beyonder type role, but there is no chance that all of the Kangs are not going to do anything against this. So maybe one of the Kangs is going to somehow find themselves into the TVA, maybe they're going to recruit Miss Minutes onto their side, and I would love to see one of them try and dethrone Loki and completely change the way in which the multiverse is running. I honestly think Loki is going to be such a big player in Kang Dynasty and in sequels, and we were also promised that there is going to be a reunion between this version of Loki and the current version of Thor. Oh my god, I cannot wait for that moment to take place, as you just know it's going to be so emotional, so characterful, and I just loved their brotherly relationship across so many movies, and so we haven't seen that since Thor Ragnarok pretty much, as that is when the Sacred Timeline version of Loki was killed so unceremoniously and so brutally at the hands of Thanos. And then of course we had this other version of Loki going down this brilliant path from grabbing the Tesseract and creating a new branch timeline, and of course having all of the adventures that we've seen in the 2 seasons on the Disney Plus show. I honestly can't wait for that moment to take place. I'm sure it's going to have the similar vibes that we saw in Endgame between Peter Parker and Tony Stark when they were finally reunited when all of the characters returned after the blip. But I'm sure after Secret Wars they are going to be doing a bit of a reset, so who knows who is going to be the characters that are going to be remaining after that, but we'll talk about all of that in another video. So now let's go back to the season as a whole. So this season was described as being the perfect second chapter to the awesome first season, and on that point I do have to say I feel like they picked up everything that they left off at the end of the first season. God, what a dramatic cliffhanger that was, in such a good way, and I feel like they did tie everything together and they did complete it in a way that you do actually feel really satisfied. I mean, of course, you just are really emotional for what Loki has now done, and you want to see what's going to happen next, and they definitely could do a third season in terms of loads of adventures with the TVA that are now going to be taking place with this new vision of the multiverse being a tree and growing the multiverse and all that kind of stuff. But if they don't do that, like I said, I feel like the second season was such a brilliant companion piece to the first season, and if it is only ever 2 seasons, I feel like they did such a stellar job, and I feel like they completed it in such a good way. And I feel like the writing, something that a lot of movies and TV shows, not just Marvel Studios, have been criticized for lately. I feel like Loki season 2 in particular really does show how you do a tremendous job from a writing perspective, and how you are also able to match that from an acting perspective. As like I said, everybody definitely did put their best foot forward, and you really were feeling like it's a real acting masterclass from all of the different actors across all of the different tones that this show was doing. And the Marvels, for example, that really did not work from having loads of tonal shifts within their movie, whereas I feel like Loki really does show how you do it properly. And maybe if they had released the second season a couple of years ago, perhaps they would have considered doing a third season. But given the mess that Marvel Studios is in, in terms of cancelling shows left, right and centre, for example, Wonder Man, Vision Quest, who knows if they're ever going to be made, and also the movies are not really doing as well as they would want them to do. So I feel like they are having their own bit of reset at the moment, so I think it's really unlikely, unfortunately, for a third season to take place. So let's go through all of the characters now, one by one. Like I said, Tom Hiddleston honestly needs to win all of the awards, as his portrayal of Loki is just so good. As a villain slash anti-hero, which a lot of other productions are kind of putting in the forefront lately, I feel like Loki is easily the best one, and is easily one of the best characters that the MCU has created, up there, along with Wanda and Tony Stark and Steve Rogers, who are just on another level. Where Loki is able to easily join them on that plate. And like I keep saying, Tom Hiddleston's performance as Loki is just so good. You can really tell that he is such a trained actor, as he just does such a good job, from all of the emotional performances, the eye acting alone, even in that final shot of him sitting on the throne, having to now take care of the multiverse, you can just feel everything. And like I said, his arc across the entirety of his journey in the MCU is so good. When you first saw him, he's such a lovable villain, as he just wants everything for himself. He just wants to sit at the top of Asgard, he just wants to throw Thor away, he just wants to be the best son. And you can also, back in those days, understand where he was coming from in terms of all of the frost giants, the fact that he's not a biological son, all of the adoptive son typical stories that you do see. I feel like from day one, Loki was already such a brilliant character, and he's just gone from strength to strength to strength every single time. And as far as this season was concerned, I have to say he was the glue that definitely held everything together, both from a storyline perspective and also from a characterization perspective, as Sylvie and Mobius right at the end, I mean, you could see that they were just friends because of the fact that they were friends with Loki. So like I said, he really did hold everything together. And then speaking of Mobius, I have to say, Owen Wilson was so good as well. I just love the bromance between these two guys. He really was the yin to his yang. That really was the centerpiece of this entire season. And we've already always wanted to know in the first season, what on earth is the jet skis about with this character? And we finally got to see that actually he was just a jet ski salesman. And he also had two sons very similar to Odin, Thor and Loki. And maybe that's why he saw a bit of a kinship in Loki, because he had a bit of a paternal relationship with him. So all of that stuff was so good. Jonathan Majors was also really good as Kang the Conqueror. Of course, we got to see a couple of different variants of him, for example with Victor Timely. But I loved it in the final episode when you revisit He Who Remains in his throne, and how he has already always been one step ahead, and he kind of foresaw that all of this stuff, you know, with Sylvie killing him could kind of be undone because of Loki's time slipping, and he was kind of offering him a solution. I feel like if he had gone down that road in terms of killing Sylvie and then kind of making sure that all of the multiverse stuff takes place properly, he would have then stabbed him in the back, as well, as Kang the Conqueror is always somebody who just works alone, and he pretty much wasted centuries of Loki's life by getting him to just repeat everything, learn how the loom works, only to be flawed with it, as the loom was only ever going to be a failsafe to preserve the sacred timeline in the way that He Who Remains wanted it to go. I thought it was honestly such a brilliant revelation, and also, like I said, so Shakespearean, as He Who Remains has always been such a villainous character, and when other people are thinking that they're winning, he is already one step ahead. But I loved it how Loki saw a new equation to how this all can actually be remedied in terms of creating a tree of life, and this is the thing that allows all of the branches to prosper. So I honestly think Loki is such a brilliant character. When you think you were able to outsmart him, Loki will work out another way to always be on top. I honestly think the writing from Kang the Conqueror as well as Loki was so good, and I don't think anybody else really would have been able to match Kang the Conqueror in the brilliant and sophisticated way that Loki really did do. Sylvie wasn't as big of a player, I thought, in the second season as much as she was in the first season. In the first season, she was absolutely tremendous, and in the second season, she's a very different type of character, a lot more mellow. She definitely does want to remove all of the Kang the Conquerors, definitely wants to champion free will. I would have loved a couple more sequences taking place with her and with Loki. I did love the final couple of ones when Loki does pause time, and you know, he does learn a lot from both Sylvie and Mobius. And I did think it was a little bit tragic how, you know, Loki has learned so much and now he's doing this mission for himself, but Mobius and Sylvie haven't gone on the same journey right at the end, so they don't really know all of the stuff as to why Loki is doing all of this. So I feel like they're now going to be a little bit lost without Loki. So I just can't wait to see what's going to happen in the future with them. I really do hope that Marvel somehow, I mean, they've got so many characters to deal with, but I hope we do get to see a little bit more as to what's going to happen in the future with them. Maybe Sylvie is now going to take up the role of actually being the Loki of this world, and maybe she is going to have a bit more of a role actually in Deadpool 3 and Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. I love how they brought back Renslayer as well. I wasn't sure if she was going to come back when the first couple of episodes were coming along, but then when she came back and she teamed up with Miss Minutes, honestly, what an unstoppable duo and true villains in this season. The way that they unceremoniously killed so many of the TVA agents just because they were on the side of free will. Renslayer was honestly such a formidable character, and I don't think this is the last that we've seen her at the end of season 2. I mean, maybe this is an easy way to just kill off one of your villains, but she is such a barbaric character that I'm sure she's going to come back. And we did see the pyramid at the end of time as well, so maybe Rama-Tut is now the one that is controlling Goliath, and maybe she is going to partner up with him, who knows, but I'm sure this is not the last that we've seen of Renslayer. Like I said, Miss Minutes, such a barbaric, twisted, evil character. I love that they expanded a lot more of her motivation and somewhat of her backstory in this season as well. She was just so good. Obi, Kihao Quan did such a good job bringing him to life. Such a lovable character, and I love how right at the end, the updated version of the TVA manual is now co-written by both him and Victor Timely. Casey was just an additional character. I feel like it was interesting to see his backstory when we saw in the branch timeline all of those other people where they were taken from in terms of becoming TVA agents before their branches were also unceremoniously destroyed and spaghettified completely. But like I said, I don't think Casey brought that much to the table, unfortunately. Hunter B-15 was really cool. I love how she is such a completely different character to the first season's version of her, where she was always so determined to remove all of the branch timelines, whereas now she is the savior of them, which is really interesting. And X-15, I thought he was such an awful character, as he was the person that was happy to just kill off everybody else. I'm sure he killed off his real sacred timeline version of himself, Brad Wolf, and was then happy to replace him. As the actor, I honestly feel like it would have been wicked to have seen a little bit more. And there were different plans originally for episode 5, so maybe we would have seen a little bit more of him, and we could have just seen a little bit more of Renslayer. Maybe we would have revisited certain parts of the films as well. Can you imagine if we went back to Infinity War and Endgame and maybe Age of Ultron, Loki time-slipping through those time periods with Renslayer, with X-15 around? Those could have been such wicked scenes. But overall, I just have to say, I absolutely love Loki Season 2. It was just such a brilliantly written show. It was acted absolutely formidably. They didn't rush it at all. Everything was just gradually building and you're so gripped with it all. All of the cliffhangers at the end of each episode are really good. All of the character writing was so good. So character driven, while still having all of the quintessential Marvel Studios magical stuff taking place as well. It was honestly the perfect way to conclude an equally brilliant first season. And so for all of those reasons, I'm going to give Loki Season 2 a mega 8 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear what you thought of the show, so please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.